So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about artificial intelligence, and will it overwhelm us? Some people are very worried about artificial intelligence and its implications. Artificial intelligence, or AI as it's sometimes called, began in 1956, happens to be the year of my birth, so I'm the same age as artificial intelligence, in Dartmouth University in the US, and such pioneers as John McCarthy and Marvin Minsky, who both won the Turing Award, which is like the Nobel Prize of computer science, pulled together a meeting of people. They wanted to study the idea that computers could actually exhibit intelligent behaviour. And this was something very adventurous at the time that was not an obvious thing to try. And the version of artificial intelligence they're interested in is a sort of rather optimistic version, sometimes known as strong AI. The idea that, in principle, all of the behaviours that we see in animals and people that we think of as being intelligent, in principle, you could get those reproduced by a computer that was sufficiently well programmed and that was sufficiently big. Not, of course, that anybody expected that that would actually happen with any of the computers of that time, which, of course, were the most powerful of those computers was not even the power of my mobile phone, and would be filling a room to boot. And so they conceived of this initially as a summer project. It seems incredible that they could have been quite so optimistic as to think that they could make progress getting machines to behave artificially over the summer. But that was what they thought. And to begin with, a lot of what was done was programming the computers to play chess and checkers, because people thought chess playing is something really difficult. I mean, I don't know, if you're any good at chess, I'm not very good at chess, and you sort of admire people who are good at chess, so they thought, well, if you could get a computer to play chess, that really has captured human intelligence, or a piece of it. And so that's what people did for a while, before they came to realise that actually some of the things that you learn when you're under 5 years old, like how to walk, and how to recognise your mother, and how not to be run down by a car, this kind of thing, are actually very much more difficult. When you actually sit down and try to program a computer to do those things, it turns out to be very hard. So we have computer programs which now have beaten the world chess champion. So the world chess champion is now a computer. But programs that will learn like little children will learn, or that can walk like little children, or are getting better at that can recognise their mothers, getting better at that, but these things are really very difficult. Have you heard of Alan Turing? He's been in the news a bit recently. He had his centenary of his birth last year. He received a royal pardon from the Queen very recently because he was mistreated by the UK back in the late 50s. And he had this idea that if you wanted to tell whether a computer was intelligent or not, I mean, how would you know when you've done artificial intelligence? So he had this idea of what has come to be called the Turing test. You have a kind of blind conversation with a computer which is trying to masquerade as a person. And you ask, this is a sort of sample, I don't know if you can see this, I'll read it to you because the writing is a bit small, of the kind of exchange you might have. And so the interrogator, that's the human who's trying to find out, is this thing behind the screen a computer or is it a human being, says, in the first line of the sonnet which reads, shall I compare these with summer's day, famous sonnet, how about if we put a spring day instead of a summer's day, would that be good? And then the computer says, no, it wouldn't scan, so that tells us this computer, or is it a person, knows about poetry, impressive. What about how about a winter's day? Could we do that? That scans fine, and then the computer says, no, nobody wants to be compared in a love poem to a winter's day. I mean, is that flattering or what? And so, the computer, or the person, understands about, human affairs to some extent, and so on. And the conversation continues. And so Turing imagined this kind of contest as being how you would identify a computer that was behaving intelligently to kind of human quality. This has sort of been the subject of a lot of a lot of debate. So the philosopher John Searle, in particular, is very skeptical about this program of strong artificial intelligence, whether computers really can behave in all ways like humans. And he criticises Newell and Simon there, who are early researchers in artificial intelligence, for claiming that computers could, in principle, behave like human beings. He says, no, this couldn't happen. And he says also, strong AI has very little to tell us about thinking, because Searle believed, in principle, that computers could never be, however clever they could never encapsulate all of the range of intelligence that humans have. And there have been other skeptics, Roger Penrose, and he also came out against strong AI. He felt that a computer, in principle, could not possibly capture all of what humans do. So he started positing that perhaps the brain was more than a classical machine. Maybe there's some quantum mechanics going on in the brain, and maybe that's where the magic happens that can't be explained by a regular deterministic machine. And in particular, he felt that consciousness was something which, that's a sort of magic thing. You can't capture that in a computer. I don't know if you feel that, or many people feel there are certain things that, oh yes, that's something you can't do with artificial intelligence. Like emotions, that's another popular one. What do you think? Could emotions be captured by a computer? Or is that sort of in principle something a computer could never do? Being conscious, is that something a computer could never do? Well, there are many people who believe that that is the case. I don't believe that. I think getting a computer to be emotional, definitely that could be done. What do you think, Ross?